We are in Africa. And yet, Mr. Aaron Mupeti, don't correct I'm going to come to you, don't worry. He's from the Quad Para Association of Gauteng. I feel like jumping. My cover didn't jump. These children working hours. I'm coming. Yes, I was speaker. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to speak on such an important occasion where we celebrate the lives of people with disabilities and their achievements. Basically, I'll focus on the eliminating barriers, promoting inclusion, and celebrating the achievements of people with disabilities despite the barriers and obstacles they encounter, with particular emphasis on the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, the African Disability Protocol, as well as legislation that we have and the legal frameworks we have in the country. So, first of all, we need to understand what is disability inclusion. Well, disability inclusion involves creating environments where all individuals, regardless of their ability, can fully participate in society. The core elements include eliminating barriers, be it physical, attitudinal, and systematic. It also includes equal opportunities in employment, education, healthcare, and social participation. As the saying goes, nothing about us without us. And it also includes active participation that ensures that people with disabilities are agents of change. So self-representation in various forums, in employment, in society, in formulation of policies is very important to people with disabilities, and they should be involved in every step of the way. As for the legal and policy framework supporting inclusion, we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, UNCRPD, which was actually ratified by our country in 2007. The key articles are Article 9, which centers on accessibility, Article 27, which speaks of work and employment, and participation in political and public life. As I've highlighted, nothing about us without us. The African Disability Protocol goes on further to contextualize disability in the African context, where it addresses the cultural, economic, and social context specific to Africa. As you well know, resources at times they fail us, and we need to adapt policies given the little resources in Africa we have, not to mention the negative cultural norms. As for South Africa per se, we've got the Constitution, particularly Section 9 that guarantees equality and human dignity, and the Employment Equity Act, which one of the previous speakers alluded to. So I've spoken about the UNCRPD. So its purpose basically is to promote and ensure full and equal enjoyment of all human rights for persons with disabilities, and not to mention the various articles. So one should take cognizance of this international convention and try to apply it in our daily lives, be it employment in the city and at home, per se. We also talk about the African Disability Protocol, and awareness should be raised so that people get to know what it's all about and how to protect the rights of people with disabilities. It actually complements the UN Convention within the African context. So, despite all these conventions, there are actually barriers hindering disability inclusion, which is physical barriers. For instance, we don't have a ramp, and I'm supposed to be speaking on stage, and hopefully one of these days we'll have universally designed buildings to cater for such, and we don't have to adapt ramps when need be. Attitudinal barriers. We need to eliminate stigma and discrimination, and this is one of the barriers that people with disabilities face. For disability to occur, there should be an impairment and a barrier. Once you eliminate the barrier, then it becomes easy for someone, be it an employee or someone living with a disability community, to function at their highest degree and performance. Systemic barriers are also hinder inclusion or disability inclusion, such as legislation implementation. As a country, we yet to actually come up with a policy or an act that actually inculcate the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, as well as the African Disability Protocol. So we call upon the city to also spearhead in making sure that their policies pay particular attention to these protocols, because they are very vital in making our lives easier as people with disabilities. We also have economic barriers, such as high unemployment for people high unemployment rates among people with disabilities, limited access to financial resources, and entrepreneurial support. However, not all hope has been lost, because there has been a progress in eliminating barriers, such as legislative and policy progress, adoption of disability-specific policies, such as the National Disability Rights Policy, enforcement of quotas for employing people with disabilities. However, we call upon employers not only to focus on learnerships when it comes to people with disabilities, but actually provide meaningful employment after those learnerships. We've got some of our members within the disability community that move from one learnership to another. And not only that, some become increasingly frustrated, because after a learnership opportunity avails itself and they complete the learnership, they end up sitting at home because no employer is willing to employ someone with a disability to the so-called employment and important jobs. So we should take cognizance of this, that there is life after learnerships for people with disabilities. And learnerships should not be used to just fulfill employment quotas by employers. There's also been progress in awareness, and I would like to thank the city for such an occasion which raises awareness and gives us a platform for us to actually voice our concern. And I don't know if the media is there, but they've actually come aboard at times and represented our interests. Economic barriers. It's not going there. In education, there have also been strikes. For instance, long distance learning that is very suitable for people with disabilities. For instance, you've got UNISA and other mainstream universities actually promoting inclusion of people with disabilities. And the development of inclusive curricula and teacher training programs. Now we come to the achievements of people with disabilities. Despite all the barriers that we face, we see that our members have actually overcome some of those barriers. Some are actually occupying senior roles, be it in government, in the legislature, and so on. And I can give an example of Aris Arelis, who is the founding member of Quadpara. Through him, we have been able to empower a lot of people with disabilities, partnering with institutions such as Sabat to provide basically batteries for electrically powered wheelchairs, and not to mention other people who have also actually excelled in leadership. There's one gentleman called Nelson Banda. He's actually, despite his polio and his disability, he has actually become one of our top energy lawyers in the country. People with disabilities have also excelled in entrepreneurship. For example, I run my own practice as an attorney, and there are other people who are excelling well in construction and are being funded by CIFA. With regards to innovations, people with disabilities are actually for spearheading such campaigns like events like these, like the one we're attending right now. There also needs to be capacity building programs, as the previous speaker has alluded to, the advocate, and technology and innovation. She also alluded to that, and I won't dwell much. And there also has to be leadership by people with disabilities, encouraging people with disabilities to lead initiatives and policy-making efforts. Like I said, self-representation is very important, and nothing about us without us. So let us honor all these milestones and celebrate the milestones. And in conclusion, my key message is basically disability inclusion is not just a legal obligation, but as one previous speaker mentioned, it's actually morally imperative. So we call upon ourselves as individuals, the city, various companies and communities to commit in breaking barriers in every sphere of life, celebrate their achievements to inspire further progress, and together we can create a society that values diversity and empowers individuals. Thank you.